And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. And that's at Coffee Talk Live if you're looking for me on YouTube or Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. And of course, Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. And you can find me there Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And of course, as always, I try to read through as many of the comments as is plausible from people who join us in the live portion on YouTube, and that's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for YouTube. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have popped in so far. I see Helter is here. Dragon is here. Donna Beaver, who reminds people to give thumbs up, absolutely, if you wouldn't mind. Brian is here. Bingo is here. Armored Ghost, so far joining us here today as we get ready to dive into what is going on in the world. What the hell is going on in the world today? Too much of one thing and not enough of another. I see Cyberjack Sr. has joined us. Glad you could make it today. Always appreciate when people can pop in and even chime in with certain comments or certain points, because I don't know everything. I sure don't. I just read the news and muddle through it as sarcastically as possible because of how ridiculous it is and how stupid they think everyone is. Although, to be fair, most people are not that smart. Not that smart. So the media sure does take advantage of them. See, Boogers is here. Glad you could make it here today. As those of you who can see, I am joined by Daniel today. Daniel, everybody, in the chair where recently you've been seeing Dusty, but he pushed her out and took her spot. So I have Daniel keeping me company in the background. Uncle is lurking in the doorway, but you wouldn't be able to see him anyways. He may pop in. We'll see. I know there's a few people that would that like to see Uncle. As we go ahead and start digging into what's going on in the world, and we talked about this just yesterday, but it has expanded now. And that, of course, is Fani Willis, district attorney in Georgia, who is trying to have a Salem witch trial with Donald Trump. And I see Sean has joined us from Northern Illinois. How's the weather holding up there? And of course, you know, a lot of you know I used to live in Illinois. I lived in Elgin, Illinois for a few years. But this is the Western Journal, and that's Fani Willis. It says Georgia DA who's prosecuting Trump gets subpoenaed. She is now subpoenaed in a separate case. And we talked about her yesterday and her nepotism, because the person that she hired as a special prosecutor against Donald Trump, or an investigator, a law firm she hired as a special investigator, turns out to be her boyfriend, who has thus far on record been paid something like $654,000 to do his wannabe investigations, because he really hasn't done much of anything. But it's rumor has it it's more akin to about $1 million in taxpayer money and redirected C-virus relief funding. So here we go. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who has been working for months to take down former President Donald Trump, is now facing scrutiny herself after being subpoenaed to testify in a colleague's divorce proceedings, according to reports. You want to guess who that colleague is? Willis was served a subpoena at her office in Atlanta on January 8th, according to the Wall Street Journal. And it's just now getting out. She kept that under wraps for a few days. Willis is being asked to testify in the Cobb County divorce case of Nathan Wade, a lawyer that she hired to prosecute Trump. The case has been filed by Jocelyn Wade through her attorney. So her boyfriend that she took the cruise with, and that she took the trip to Florida with, and that she took all these trips with and hung around with, this boyfriend that she hired. And like I said, rumor has it, he's been paid almost $1 million in fees for investigating, quote, Trump. Isn't even a single man. He's married, and now he's getting divorced, probably as a result of all of this. And she's been subpoenaed to go to that trial. Willis has declined to comment about the divorce case and has not filed any response to the subpoena. I bet neither Nathan Wade nor his estranged wife has made a public comment about the case. The subpoena, though, came on the heels of a filing by the Trump legal team alleging misconduct by Willis and Wade. Apparently, they're correct, including the accusation that they had an improper clandestine personal relationship during the pendency of the case. And apparently that's true now, as she's being subpoenaed to go to that divorce trial. Lawyers for former Trump campaign official Mike Roman said that the relationship between Willis and Wade resulted in the special prosecutor and in turn the district attorney profiting significantly from this prosecution at the expense of taxpayers. And that is what that looks like. Again, we looked at the other article yesterday, and you could see invoices. You could see the invoices from Nathan Wade's office to the district attorney's office for thousands upon thousands of dollars for basically nothing. For basically nothing. As I'll catch up a few comments here really quickly. I see Gary Edwards is here, as well as Urban Angst. Bingo says they just saw an article that she colluded with the January 6th committee to take Trump to trial at the same time to soil his name, I guess, question mark. That's very likely. If you recall, and we read this in yesterday's article, that the White House, the executive branch of the White House, claimed that they had not met with Wade. They had not had contact with Wade or Willis, whatever. But now the invoices reveal that Wade has indeed had very lengthy interviews at the White House with White House staff on the subject. So they lied. They lied, basically. I see Preparedness Veteran has joined us here today, as well as Velvet Pilot. And Gary says, Wade counted, found wanting. And Helter says, we're looking at criminal indictments if they can prove that Willis benefited from the hiring of this lawyer who has absolutely no experience in RICO cases or felony prosecutions. Yeah. She hired him because they were having an affair. This is my opinion, but we'll see as the trial wears on. And that's why she's going to trial now. This is why she's been subpoenaed in the divorce case of Wade and his wife, because evidently they were having an affair, or very likely ongoing. So it was a violation of interest anyways to hire that man to do that job. And the amounts that he was paid, that he's been paid so far, just don't make any sense. The invoices that we looked at yesterday, they were already up to $654,000 in charges for nothing, for 2 meetings, essentially. 2 meetings and a couple of interviews with potential witnesses and some discovery. There's nothing there. And again, rumor has it that it's more than that, that it's damn near $1 million that this man has been paid, and it's tax money and C-virus money that's been redirected, but that's still tax money. So she paid her little secret boyfriend from from the state coffers to do this fake investigation, and now she's getting caught up in it. It'd be interesting to see where this goes. It'd be interesting to see where this goes. Dragon says, Trump is laughing his ass off. I bet he is. I bet that's hilarious to him that this is happening now, that this is happening to her. Bingo says, I missed yesterday's stream. I was sick. Sorry about that. No problem, Bingo. And it's saved if you want to see it, or you can catch it on Fistful of Radio. That's life, but not as we know it has joined us. It says every politician is a criminal, each and every one, Trump included. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. The further up the food chain you go in politics, the more corrupt these people become. You recall that we read an article about a small town mayor in Illinois, and that's gotten worse. By the way, the situation has gotten worse. Out of control spending that has put the township in serious debt. They went from having a surplus to being $7 million in debt, and I showed a video clip of her at the town meeting being ghetto as hell and wouldn't let people talk and argued with everybody. She was horrible. I was like, God, you voted for this person? So yeah, there's a lot of room for corruption in politics. And the majority of them, no matter what country you're in, are probably tied into that. Is there an honest politician? I'd like to think there is somewhere, but I can't find him. I don't know. Excuse me. Merv says Big Fannie Willis's courtroom love affair met with the Joe Biden's White House on all on taxpayer money, and there's another love affair with some gangbanger she indicted. Return taxpayers' money. It'd be nice if they could get taxpayers' money back. I've heard that she had an affair with some gangbanger. I don't know too much about that to comment on it. It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know. I don't know if that's true or how true it is. But there you go, more corruption. I mean, she's claiming to be exposing corruption, and she sounds as bad as or even worse than what she claims Trump is. I mean, Trump is no saint, but give me a damn break. Give me a break. This is the thing. You're claiming to be protecting us and saving us all from this corrupt politician. But the people that are going after Trump are as corrupt or worse than they claim he is. And we're supposed to trust the system. And again, I'll throw it out there. Where is Stacey Abrams in all of this? Stacey Abrams, who is an election denier. To this day, she will not concede that she lost either of those gubernatorial runs. She's run for the seat of governor twice in Georgia and lost. And as far as she's concerned, she didn't lose. Not as far as I can tell. How come she's not in the hot seat? No one's going to drag her into court and accuse her of anything. And that's how it goes. Gary Edwards says politics makes strange bedfellows. And Merv says that election interference should be prosecuted. And this can be considered election interference because she's trying to sideline Trump from being able to run properly. Because like him or hate him, you can't prove he did anything. He should be allowed to run if he wants to. And if they're so scared of him, if they think he's such a bad guy, then they should ignore him, because everything that they do to try to stop him lends credibility to his claims. It's simple as that. You look at that and you see the corruption and you say, yeah, you know what? I identify with that on some level, because I don't trust the government either. If they're trying so hard to stop this guy, it ain't to protect us. Sure as hell not. Now, this is interesting right here. We've been talking a lot about Claudine Gay. Well, this is something different. This has to do with Spellman. I don't know if anybody has seen this story. And Beer Hounds says, I don't think Trump's corrupt. A lot of people don't. But, like I said, they're trying very hard to make him look like he is. And again, Trump is no saint. None of them are. But there's worse options, believe me. We've got one sitting in the White House now. Excuse me. This is from Faculty News. Okay. Inside Higher Education, Faculty News. I don't think I've read an article from them before. This is important. This is important, and it's flying under the radar. Professor says Spellman raised students' grades and then fired him. Okay. Former tenure-track faculty member says the college inflated students' grades and axed him after he complained. Some say that violates academic freedom. I watched an interview with this guy, okay? And that's Kendrick Morales. Kendrick Morales, he's a professor of economics at Spelman College. And for those of you who are not in the know, maybe you're in another country or something, Spelman is one of the top tier black colleges in the United States. It's like primarily, correct me if I'm wrong, it's one of the, it's majority black. And that's like, if you're big academically in the black community, you want to go to Spelman. And this is a professor of economics. And like I said, I saw the interview, so I'll read a little bit more, and then I'll tell you what I gathered from the interview. One more comment here. Beer says Trump may have done a couple shady business dealings, but to call him corrupt, I guess, come on, man. Is that what you're saying? Come on, man. Yeah, I know. You can't, if people believe it, they can't prove it anyways. There are people who think he is. But as I said, there are far worse alternatives to Trump, believe me. I wouldn't mind seeing him in office again. So back to the article. A former assistant professor of economics at Spelman College says the institution bumped up the grades he gave students without informing him beforehand, and after he complained, fired him without giving him the right to appeal. Kendrick Morales said he worked at the college for 2 years in a tenure-track position before it ousted him this summer. Quote, I was planning to teach in the fall, which was like a couple of weeks later, Morales told Inside Higher Education. They didn't give me any kind of warning. Calculations he provided suggested significant percentages of upperclassmen, including seniors in a thesis class, were set to fail a few of his courses, even after his own substantial scaling up of their scores. He said the college surreptitiously intervened to further increase grades in 2 classes. Among the emails and documents Morales has provided about his situation is one suggesting administrators changing grades might be a broader issue at Spelman. I brought your issue to faculty council, and some of them experienced what you did. Lisa B. Hibbard, the then president of Spelman's faculty council, wrote in an April email to Morales that he provided Inside Higher Education. They all agreed that grades are at the discretion of the instructor only and no one else. Hibbard didn't respond to requests for comment. Okay, like I said, I saw an actual interview with this guy, and this is interesting. First of all, the rule at Spelman is grading is up to the professor and no one else. So according to Spelman's own rules, they can't slip in and change grades. Now, excuse me, the majority of his students in several of his classes, 2 in particular, were all failing. The majority were failing. Because of this, he did a curve and already bumped the grades anyways. And they were still failing the classes. Essentially, they weren't doing the work. They were not doing the work. They weren't complying with instruction. And the students petitioned for him to give them an even bigger break on the grading. And he said, I've already given you a couple of breaks on grading. I'm not doing any more. You need to do the work. They complained to the dean's office. The dean's office told him to change the grades, and he refused, citing, again, I've already changed them. Then the dean's office changed the grades anyways and then fired him without notice and without talking to him about the grade bumps or the changing. And even after that, according to Professor Morales, 40% of the students in 2 of those classes will still fail even after the dean changed their grades. Let that sink in. And this is a top tier black college. Fascinating. Excuse me. Let me catch up a couple of comments. Urban says first the schools admit substandard applicants, then they have to pass them to keep their funding. And Beer says thank you for helping keep the brainwashed masses informed. Cheers. I try. I try. I'm preaching to the choir, as it were, but you never know. Somebody might listen. And All People says the U.S. has something like 90 black communities, not simply one black community. Same with Indian tribes. Neither group is a single homogenous monolithic unit. Okay. Bingo says Vivek is bought and paid for. Google how he got rich. I'll give you a clue. It's because of BlackRock, Vanguard, and Soros. Gary Edwards says Morales wasn't a team player and he got benched pretty much all the way out because, you know, you get fired like that for not cooperating with the request of the school administration. Good luck getting a job anywhere else. I don't see him. He even said as much in the interview. He says, I'd like to continue to work in academics, but I don't see how I'm going to find any work in the profession now. Bingo says losing $1 billion a year. Their investments raised the share price from 3 to over 10, making him a billionaire overnight. Oh, talking about BlackRock and stuff there. Armand says if Trump miraculously wins, blue states secede. I have no idea. Dragon says compare U.S. academic achievement to other nations and you'll see what a sorry mess college students are. We're at the bottom of Western industrialized nations for basic skills. Grading means nothing. Excuse me, still a bit of a sore throat. Yeah, they're not learning anything. They didn't learn anything in public school. They're not going to learn anything in college. And you're not taught anything. You know, you teach yourself using a teacher or a professor as a resource. If they have no desire to learn, they're not going to learn anything. And a lot of the garbage that they have available in these universities and in these colleges now are pretty pathetic. So these kids took a cakewalk through public school. Some of them might have gone to private school. I doubt it. But, you know, they took a cakewalk through public school and they expect to take a cakewalk through college as well. And they didn't want to put in the effort. College isn't supposed to be hard. Universities are not supposed to, isn't supposed to be easy. College and university is not supposed to be easy. That's why it's supposed to be an institute of higher learning. But not if they're going to lower standards. Bingo says, not to mention, just think about how badly he slams the system, but isn't blackballed magically. He's saying the same stuff as Trump, but is trending on social media. Oh, talking about Ramaswamy. Urban says this will not help to curb race-based job hiring. If a manager has a job applicant who graduated from one of these schools, he'll probably not be considered over other applicants from regular schools. And that's been going on for a long time. You can even find it in All in the Family. You remember All in the Family, Archie Bunker. There is an episode that covers that with Mike, who is going out for a teaching job. Remember, he's in college. He's going out for a teacher job, and he is passed over for another student from the college. It was between him and another student. The other student happened to be black. And afterwards, he asked the professor who was in charge of making the decision, I got to know, Is it because he's black? Paraphrasing a little bit, I'm just recalling the story. And the guy admitted it. He said, yeah, he is, because Mike was better qualified. Excuse me. He was a better student. He had better grades. He was better qualified. But because of affirmative action, and that's what the professor told him, we've got to give him a break. And Mike was very upset, because you remember how super liberal Mike was on the show, but it kicked him in the teeth that day. He was very angry. He even broke the glass in the office door on his way out. He became violent. Preparedness says box ticking and grade elevation is rife in many organizations now. Even failure is rewarded these days. And Urban says it'd be interesting to see if the fire professor was one of those pushing progressive ideology for the past decade or so. Good point. Good point. Merv says, I want to hear her testimony talking about Fanny at her own special trial. I want to hear her colluding with the White House. And excuse me. All People says, when the U.S. began letting mass influxes of blacks flooding in since 1965, it's bowed to the demands of newcomers. And he quotes pass and failing grades. And Sean says he graduated in 99. Yeah, and Meathead, of course, is what Archie used to call Mike, because he considered Mike to be useless. He lived in Archie's home for years for free while he went to college. He didn't contribute anything, not even chores, as far as I recall. So we're going to bounce from Spelman to New York. And we're going to talk about Mayor Adams. And this is interesting. New York Post, Adams reversing his planned $37 million migrant cuts to the New York Police Department and the Fire Department after reallocating the budget gap. Translation: he looks like Mayor Shit right now for all of the mess that he's done, and he has really buried himself by shutting down that school, shutting down that high school and using it as a migrant shelter and going back to distance learning. That was the last straw for a lot of people in New York. So now he's walking this back because he was cutting out and getting rid of firemen and police officers. He's walking this back now to try to save face. Mayor Eric Adams on Wednesday rolled back planned cuts to the New York Police Department and the Fire Department, saying the city overestimated how much cash it needed to balance its checkbook while covering the cost of the migrant crisis. Bullshit. The reversal means the police department will be able to send a class of 600 recruits through the academy in April, and that the fire department can restore full staffing at some of its busiest engine companies. The restored funds, which total roughly $37 million, were reallocated after the city realized its November budget projections were too conservative, Adams said. Yeah, sure. I'm sure that's what happened. In the November plan, excuse me, in the November plan, we didn't have any clear understanding of what the fiscal outcome was going to look like, His Honor said from City Hall. We wanted to be as fiscally prudent as possible. Instead of having to go back to the team and tell them we underestimated, we wanted to make sure we were getting the right numbers. Mayor Eric Adams restored the next police classes after overestimating the deep cuts needed to cover the migrant shelter cost. Gabriel Bass asked if any other planned cuts, such as Sunday library services and litter baskets near parks and greenways, would be reversed. Adams would only say that his budget director, Jacques Jiha, would brief the media on the budget next week. So he passed the buck. The mayor did say the city was forecast to shave off 20% of migrant shelter cuts by the end of the fiscal year and 2025 by June. The price tag of the migrant crisis, illegal immigrants, please, seriously, through the next fiscal year was now pegged at a little over $10 billion rather than the previous $12 billion estimate, Adams noted. Yeah, I don't believe him. I think that this is his way to save face after all of the failures, after all of the accusations against other states, mocking Texas, mocking Arizona until the migrant crisis hit him, picking on San Francisco. Oh, look, we're not as bad as them. Seriously, Adams? All the budget cuts, sanitation, sewage, fire department, police department, so that he could accommodate illegal immigrants in hotel rooms, give them free meals, give them free health care, put them in schools. And now, again, vacating that high school so that they could set it up as a shelter has embarrassed the hell out of Adams. And this is a hot button issue, the reduction of police and fire department. And so he scrounged up a little bit of money to keep them going for a little longer so that he could look like he's not that pathetic. Nature Nerd says, my college teacher said college is hard. C's get degrees. And Preparedness says, I hear they're now pushing for people to take in illegals into their homes because they've run out of space. I've heard that they want to do a program, certain states, including New York, and they're trying to do this in upstate New York, that, and I can't confirm it, excuse me, but I've heard that they are opening up a program where they will pay you to basically rent a room, do a roommate kind of a thing. Taxpayer money again. All People says Meathead was a typical leftist liberal parasitic bum who advanced himself by leeching off of good hard-working Archie and did nothing but complain about Archie. And I've talked about, I've used All in the Family as an example several times, because if you go and you watch it as an adult, because I saw it as a kid, when you go and watch it as an adult, it comes off very differently, and you start to realize that Mike was the antigen of the show. He's the one that triggered all the problems, if you're really paying attention. Helter says he's hated by both his party and the opposition, and the city council is not even fully behind him. I wonder how he's going to complete his term at this point. God knows. God knows. So I catch through here. Nature Nerd says Adams should be removed since for misappropriation of funds, taxes is supposed to go to city services and infrastructure, not illegal immigrants. Indeed. And then, of course, there's the special aids issue. He has like the highest number of personal aides of any mayor in the country, and they're being paid an exorbitant salary for it. They're getting paid very well, and they answer only to Adams. And that's another issue that has come up recently. Why do you have so many personal aides? What are their jobs? Why are they being paid so damned much money? It doesn't make any sense. Dragon says he's probably reversing the cuts because he knows once he loses the lawsuit, Greg Abbott is going to unleash everything he's got on New York City. Oh, the lawsuit with the bus companies, that's going to go nowhere. That doesn't make any sense. You can't sue the bus companies for taking a contract and delivering people to a place where they are legally entitled to deliver them to. If they have a contract that they can drive in New York, then they can bring them to New York. It's as simple as that. Also, while they want to call themselves a sanctuary city, they can't refuse it. Where are we here? Gary Edwards says when wage slaves start wising up, they need to be replaced by illegal immigrants. And Urban says in Canada, the latest scam that's ramping up is foreign student racket. Flood the nation by any means necessary. So here we go. This is one from the Daily Mail. And this should be very interesting to a lot of people, but not too surprising. Not too surprising. Again, this is the Daily Mail. Revealed half of the WHO's transmogrified health committee members and that's, of course, the World Health Organization, have no medical background, and the majority of the people on the committees are activists. All people said Eric Adams is trying to implement the Cloward-Piven scheme in New York City. And one more here, and I'll get into the article. Nature Nerd says, doesn't forced immigrants in your home go against the Fourth Amendment, where soldiers, for example, aren't allowed to just stay in your house? Well, they're not going to force them. They're gonna put a bounty out. So they'll say, if you're willing to contract this, we'll give you a check, like a foster family. When you foster kids, you get a check from the state. So that's how they're going to get around it. So here we go. Again, Daily Mail. Half of the members of the World Health Organization's Transmogrified Health Policy Committee are not qualified medical experts, and most of them are gender activists. One of the panelists in a controversial Canadian trans TikToker is a controversial Canadian trans TikToker who believes puberty blockers should be prescribed to all children, regardless of their gender identity, so they can choose their gender rather than being assigned one by society. Do you know how much that would screw up children's health if all kids were given puberty blockers? Do you know how much that would damage their health? Another member believes that transitioning causes no health problems and claims the only actual side effects of getting a sex change are a significantly improved quality of life and trans joy, an improved quality of life. Every transmogrified person, again, way back in the early 90s when I did the interviews for the Boston Phoenix, every transmogrified or cross-dressing person I was talked to was so depressed, I'm surprised they didn't pull a gun out and stick it in their mouth right in front of me. They were miserable, absolutely freaking miserable. And we're seeing more and more of that coming out. Oh, God, is that them? Florence Ashley, a law professor in Canada, believes puberty blockers should be prescribed to all children regardless of gender identity. That's so-called Florence Ashley, law professor in Canada. Oh, my God. The WHO last month published the biographies of 21, quote, experts who have been invited to help formulate guidelines that will shape how countries treat gender dysphoria. I don't have gender dysphoria. I know who the hell I am. Of the 21-member panel who have been invited to help formulate guidelines that will shape how countries treat so-called gender dysphoria, 11 have no formal medical training. 7 are transmogrified themselves. 10 have a medical background, and of those, 8 are doctors. The rest are a mixture of activists, social justice advocates, human rights lawyers, STD researchers, and policy advisors. So the doctors are STD researchers? That's weird. Several are also members of the World Professional Association for Transmogrified Health, WPATH, a nonprofit dedicated to promoting medical treatments for gender dysphoria, which has been accused of being too pro-medication. The health researchers who qualified to join the panel have training in the control and prevention of HIV and AIDS, with little emphasis on the parameters of delivering transition services known as gender-affirming care. And then they talk about so-called Ashley again. Ashley, a trans woman who used the pronoun they, them bitch. Really? This person calls themselves they, them bitch, is the committee's most controversial and outspoken member. Is bitch a pronoun? oh my God. Excuse me. Oh, man. Let me catch up a couple of these comments here because I'm sure sure they're going to pile up after that one. Preparedness says the WHO is another one of those idiotic and often pointless organizations, which also include the UN and WEF, among others. Yeah, but man, they get a lot of funding and a lot of authority, don't they? Gary Edwards says intersectional privilege, too trans to fail. All People says most of the migrants hail from socialist nations and have no intention on working in the U.S. Urban says these people hate children. It's quite clear. I can picture that. They are messed up sexually to the point that kids make no philosophical sense. Most of these, quote, activists are themselves most likely to have been abused. And that is a common theme. I will bring it up again. That when I did those interviews, I spoke to mostly gay men, a couple of lesbians, a handful, and a bunch of cross-dressers and transmogrified people, what they used to call trannies back then. The majority of people I spoke to were gay, though. The common theme with every single one of them, if I had one factor to connect all of them, because there's different themes, but one factor to connect all of them was that all of them were abused in adolescence, that is before puberty. They were all abused. The cross-dressers, not the transmogrified people, but the cross-dressers that I spoke to, were not necessarily raped, but the common theme or common thread with them, which I still consider to be abuse, is that their mothers and or sisters used to force them to play dress up. That was the common theme. And I still consider that abuse. You don't take a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid and put them in a dress and a wig and put makeup on them and tell them they're a little girl all day, especially if you're their mother. I think that's abuse. But the common theme is abuse. And all before puberty. Excuse me. Helter says they've ignored the science and data during the pandemic. Politics is more important to the WHO, so it's not really possible to trust them on matters related to medicine. And I can totally see where you're coming from. And Nature Nerd says in communism, you don't own your house, so the government can make anyone stay in your house or apartment. That's what New York is trying to do. Well, you don't own your house anyways if you still have to pay taxes on it. Just making the point. But I'm glad this came up. I don't know how well this story is going to circulate, but it's something that people need to know about. That the WHO is a damn joke, basically. The WHO is a damn joke. And yeah, I agree. I bet you these people do hate children. I bet you they do hate children. They hated their own childhood and they're lashing out subconsciously at all other children. That's horrible. It's horrible and it's frightening because that abuse is happening. They are abusing children. They're abusing a young generation of people that are coming up by exposing them to any of this. As we jump to another article, and this is from Roll Call. The people who wrote the article, Roll Call is the news agency I'm citing. House Democrats boost spending to reach Black, Latino, and Asian voters. Because you know Black, Latino, and Asian people don't know how to vote. They're too dumb, apparently. That's the thing that offends me the most. Oh man, I'm gonna fly off into a diatribe here in a minute. Excuse me. Democrats are expanding their effort to shore up support among voters of color, who the party views as essential to its hopes of regaining control of the House. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee says the historic 8-figure investment, it's a lot of cash, that's your tax money at work, will bolster advertising and mobilization drives to reach Black, Latino, and Asian American voters and build upon and broaden an existing project to combat disinformation. Quote, we know that voters of color are critical to Democrats' coalition, and the DCCC's investments highlight our commitment to continuously engaging with the communities of color on issues they care about. Representative Susan Delbene of Washington, who leads the DCCC, said in a statement announcing the effort. Democrats need to flip a net of 5 seats to take back the majority Republicans won in 2022. The party is heavily focused on Republican-held seats, including 5 in California and 6 in New York, in districts that backed Joe Biden over Donald Trump in 2020. Black, Latino, and Asian American voters have long been a key part of the Democratic base, though Republicans have taken steps to win over non-white voters in recent years with some success. Taken as a whole, Asian American registered voters were more likely to say they would vote for Democrats in House and Senate elections, according to a 2022 survey by Asian and Pacific Islander American votes. And you all know how I feel about surveys. They're full of shit. Basically, does it say how much money they're going to spend? I'm looking for it down here. I'm not seeing how much they're going to spend. This I thought was interesting. This one final paragraph here. It says a key element of the new initiative, which the DCCC calls POWER, that's an acronym for Persuade, Organize, Welcome, Educate, and Reach, is an expansion of an existing effort to address misinformation. Last cycle, the DCCC launched Juntos Together, a digital hub in English and Spanish to combat what the group calls dangerous right-wing misinformation. Power. Persuade, organize, welcome, educate, and reach. Can you put a B on there for brainwash? Oh my God. Oh my God. Let me catch up a couple of comments here, and then I'll ban. I'm holding back. Nature Nerd says, why aren't adults grounded in the real world to the point where they listen to kids that aren't grounded in the real world? I don't know. Most adults, unfortunately, are no smarter than your average child anymore anyways. Gary Edwards says, theoretically, if pregnant women are around too many people, the overexposure to human pheromones flips the neuron clustering in the INAH3 section of the hypothalamus. Urban says, oh boy, and let's not forget the evil school boards. Yeah, no kidding. Gary Edwards says, pheromones are designed by nature to target the brain. And All People says, agreed, this transistor radio agenda is child abuse. And since it's of a sexual nature, that means it's also sexual child abuse. Yeah, I can see that. But basically, the Democratic Party, okay, and Black leadership in particular, because you see this all the time. Again, I'll reference Stacey Abrams, okay, with her campaign against the Georgia voting process because it suppresses Black voters and keeps them from the polls and intimidates them. Any Black people watching? Are you sick of Black leadership in so-called Black communities taking you by the hand? Come on, brother. Let me walk you to the polls because you're too dumb and afraid to do it yourself. Because that's what it sure as hell looks like. That's what it sure looks like. It's insulting. It's insulting. It's like the Black leadership thinks of their constituents as a kindergarten class. Let's all link hands now, children. Don't get lost. Don't be scared. We're going to walk over here now. It's embarrassing. Are you not embarrassed by these people? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Do you honestly, you vote for them? Do you really think you're going to get anything? Do you think you're going to get anything from these people? Have they ever helped you? Have they ever helped you? Have they ever kept a promise? Or does it always boil down to, oh, the Republicans wouldn't let us do it? how often are you going to believe that? I mean, I'm sorry if I sound like I'm insulting, but that's something that really needs to be thought about by people who believe that shtick. All People says Democrats love to ignore Amerindians and a small number of blacks that the continental slavery survivor descendants and use the media to silence both groups because both groups despise them. And Urban says the black music industry isn't doing their community any favors by their hateful lyrics and themes. No, but that plays into the commonality of the culture. That has become part of the culture. And so those black so-called musicians, if you can even strain yourself to consider them musicians or singers, are going to feed into, because that's where the money is, because they don't care about those people either. Bingo says hitting us with medical terminology. Yeah. Monkey says Lyndon Johnson was quotes IIRC about having the African Americans voting Democrat for hundreds of years. Yeah, it sure looks like it's worked. It sure looks like it's worked, hasn't it? As we shift around here. As let me see, because I've got I don't know, I think I have time for all the things I want to talk about. It's crazy what's going on out here. It's crazy what's going on in the world, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying. And we're going to jump to Denver now. Fox News article. Fox News article. Here it is. Here it comes. Yeah, I know. Urban says if only everyone just stuck to jazz. Nothing wrong with jazz. Nothing wrong with jazz. Nothing wrong with classic rap either. I'll listen to classic rap and classic hip hop. I'll listen to De La Soul all day. Okay, I'll listen to what is the name of it? I got one sitting here. Hang on a second, because now you got me on going in a different direction. Here you go. Kool and the Gang. I've got not that one. That's a fun album. I'll listen to that all day. You know what I mean? Did I put the other ones away? I think I put my other ones away because I got some vinyl that I keep out. Listen to some tunes on the side. No, I put my other ones away. But CNC Music Factory. But by the mid '90s, it was trash. Sven says insulting or not, truth is truth. Yeah. Sometimes you need to be insulted. Sometimes you need to be insulted. Urban says I make exception for Led Zeppelin and the Beastie Boys, and of course, Kool and the Gang. LOL. Hold on. Led Zeppelin, anyone? I'm not locked into one genre of music, but I can't stand anything modern. It all sounds like garbage to me now. I can't stand listening to it. Now, where was I? Where was I? We were going to pop over to Denver, weren't we? You know what's funny about the Beastie Boys, Urban, since you brought it up? One more bunny rabbit hole before I jump off into Fox News. This Fox has the next article. Is if you watched the movie, is it Crush Groove? I think, and it has Run DMC and who else was in that? LL Cool J and a bunch of people. It was a rap movie. The Fat Boys were in it. The Beastie Boys are in that movie, in a scene in the club. They're in one scene, and they're up on stage rapping, and people are booing and jeering them, hissing at them. Boo! Like they sucked, okay? The Beastie Boys outlasted every other group that was featured in that film. How's that for irony? Anyways, Fox News, Denver to slash budgets by up to 15% due to ongoing illegal immigrant crisis. So Denver is taking a page out of New York's handbook here, and they're slicing out important budget money to accommodate illegal aliens. Denver Mayor Mike Johnson is warning the liberal city that budgets for city departments could be slashed by up to 15% in order to deal with the massive cost of the ongoing migrant crisis it is facing. 15% is a lot, actually. Johnson said this week that the city needs to compensate for about $180 million in spending on sheltering illegal immigrants who have come there either by themselves or via buses from Texas. He said he's asked agency heads to begin to draw up plans for the cuts in 2024 budget. He also said that the 4,800 migrants in shelters means that it does not have space to house anyone else at the moment. We have a lot of suboptimal options, which are either offering everyone onward travel to another location or trying to hope that they have friends or family they can stay with them there. But we think we are very different. We are at a very different tipping point that we've seen anyway up to this moment, he said on Tuesday. Johnson is one of a number of mayors who has appealed for more federal aid, your tax dollars, asking for over $5 billion. The Biden administration is currently seeking around $1.5 million from Congress as part of the border section of its supplemental funding request. So Mayor of Denver is going to cut out money from important infrastructure because you know where they're going to take the money from: water, sewage, sanitation, fire department, police department, EMT services, road repairs, stuff like that's where that budget's going to get cut. 15% is a lot of damn money. It's a lot of damn money. As I catch up a couple more comments here real quick. Nature Nerd says big groups of Chinese are crossing the U.S. border right now. Yeah, we talked about that a few weeks ago. The CCP is even creating fake police in the U.S. to police their people abroad. No borders allows authoritarians to follow asylum seekers. Yeah. Because they've had a record number. They've had more people. I think it was it November we read that article, and they said that month they had like 24,000 people from China cross the southern border, and that's more than have attempted to cross the border in 20 years. That they would get them from time to time, but they had more in 1 month than they've had in 20 years or something, if I remember correctly. All People says it's not the African Americans, slave descendants that vote Democrat, it's the Black Americans. Yeah, I can agree with that. Dragon says slash the salaries of the mayor and the Denver City Council members to help these freeloaders, and we'll see how quickly their attitudes change. I think it's interesting. It's mentioned in this article that Mayor Johnson, one of his solutions is to offer them a ticket to anywhere else when they get there. they have bus tickets for them to leave once they arrive if they're willing to take it. Urban says Crush Groove is now on my watch next list. I think it was Crush Groove. I think it's Crush Groove is the name of the album. And it was Sheena E is in it, I think, as well. But it's a bunch of rap artists from that time period. And they boo and they hiss at, like I said, the Beastie Boys. They're treated poorly on stage. But as you know, in real life, they outlasted every band, including Run DMC, who was like kings in the 80s. They're iconic of the 80s. Helter says Denver put on the Sanctuary City sign and are getting what they asked for. Sanctuary cities are a magnet for people around the world to enter illegally. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Gary Edwards says white and nerdy. Yeah, that's Weird Al Yankovic's parody of the song White and Dirty. What's interesting about that, though, is he does a better job rapping that and keeping it in time than the people that originally did it. Anyways, we're at the top of the hour. So, with that, I will go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find me live on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live and on at Prepper University Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. and Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And you can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat. So once again, of course, I'll say thank you to everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you all got something out of the conversation. See, Daniel stayed asleep the entire time. So again, hope you all got something out of the conversation, and we'll try to catch you tomorrow.